Assalamualaikum everyone.
Assalamualaikum.
Saad.
Assalam.
What's up? Sorry for missing your calls.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I saw your text afterwards, so we are okay.
So sir, we are live now.
Ji, okay. Jazakallah.
Saad bhai, if you can confirm like everything is good.
Sure.
Muhammad is good. Could Farhan Sahi and Faraz Ahmed turn their videos on? Assalamu alaikum. Faraz and Farhan.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam. I cannot see your video, I guess. Let me just see if I can see. Yeah, I can see you. You're Farhan and Faraz both. Okay, shabash. दोनों बच्चे बड़े सही तैयार हुए हैं. Excellent.
Noman Saab, can you allow me to share the screen real quick just as a test?
Yeah, sure. Okay, let me share. So yeah, now you can share your screen. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Let's see how that turns up. Okay, can you see?
Yeah, we can see the slide.
All right. And if okay, and you can see it's scrolling?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, you can take back control. I just wanted to make sure we know how to do it.
No, one side. You can be a host, but you can also make a co-host. So a co-host can also share the screens.
Yeah, this is what I did.
No, you made Salman Saab the host itself.
Oh, okay. Okay, man. Okay, I pressed another button. Let me see. There is Salman sir. Oh yeah, here you go.
Okay, thank you.
You can Salman Saab, you can reclaim host rights.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, it's fine. So we have Saad. This phone number belongs to 2635.
Saad bhai.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullah.
Ji walaikum salam. So, Viksab, are you not on your computer? Oh,
Hello.
Yeah. Okay.
Ji, Vic sir. Just sorry, information that we are live as well. We have already put the stream live.
Okay, ji. Okay.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम दुल्ला। अस्सलाम वालेकुम, आवाज आ रही है?
वालेकुम
जी,
सलाम
वालेकुम
वरहमतुल्लाह।
सलाम।
Assalamualaikum.
So, sir, I guess we can wait for another 5 minutes and then start.
जी ओके।
People joining, so we can just wait for another 5 minutes. Jazakallah. Oi. So, sir, I think we should go now.
Should I start?
Ji, please.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the gracious, ever merciful. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace be upon all of you present in this blessed gathering. I am Aam November, President of the Peel Village Chapter of Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya. Today's joint general body meeting of our two neighboring chapters of Jamaat Eldorado Park and Peel Village is being held today virtually to give an insight to the members of both of our chapters into the blessed scheme of Wasiyat or a will in Jamaat, as well as into the importance and the significance of the estate wills in the community and Canadian law. I'm grateful to respected Kabir Chuktai Saab, President Eldorado Park Chapter, and his team for having made all-out efforts to make this general body meeting a success, particularly those members of his technical team who spared time out of their busy schedule and extended all kind of technical support in this regard. I have the honor and privilege of being entrusted with the task of formally announcing the program of today's session and its subsequent proceedings, introducing the distinguished guest speakers on this occasion and their brief credentials as the program gets along. Declaring the session open, which will be spread over almost 1.5 hours, I now call upon Hamad Irfan Sahab for recitation from Holy Quran and its Urdu translation. Jazakumullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يوصيكم الله في أولادكم للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين فإن كن نساء فوق 2 فلهن ثلثا ما ترك وإن كانت واحدة فلها النصف ولأبويه لكل واحد منهما السدس مما ترك إن كان له ولد فإن لم يكن له ولد وورثه أبواه فلأمه الثلث فإن كان له إخوة فلأمه السدس من بعد وصية يوصي بها أو دين. آباؤكم وأبناؤكم لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا فريدة من الله إن الله كان عليما حكيما. وَلَكُمْ نِصْفُ مَا تَرَكَ أَزْوَاجُكُمْ إِن لَّمْ يَكُن لَّهُنَّ وَلَدٌ فَإِن كَانَ لَهُنَّ وَلَدٌ فَلَكُمُ الرُّبُعُ مِمَّا تَرَكْ من بعد وصية يوصين بها أو دين ولهن الربع مما تركتم إن لم يكن لكم ولد فإن كان لكم ولد فلهن الثمن مما تركتم من بعد وصية توصون بها أو دين وإن كان رجل يورث كلالة أو امرأة وله أخ أو أخت فلكل واحد منهما السدس فإن كانوا أكثر من ذلك فهم شركاء في الثلث من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين غير مضار وصية من الله والله عليم حليم. ابھی سورہ نساء آیات 12 تا 13 کی تلاوت کی گئی ہے. اب ان کا اردو ترجمہ پیش خدمت ہے. میں پناہ مانگتا ہوں اللہ کی دھتکارے ہوئے شیطان سے، اللہ کے نام کے ساتھ جو بے انتہا رحم کرنے والا، بن مانگے دینے والا اور بار بار رحم کرنے والا ہے. اللہ تمہیں تمہاری اولاد کے بارے میں وصیت کرتا ہے. مرد کے لیے 2 عورتوں کے حصے کے برابر حصہ ہے، اور اگر وہ 2 سے زیادہ عورتیں ہوں تو ان کے لیے 2/3 ہے اس میں سے جو اس مرنے والے نے چھوڑا، اور اگر وہ اکیلی ہو تو اس کے لیے نصف ہے، اور اس میت کے والدین کے لیے ان میں سے ہر ایک کے لیے اس کے ترکے میں 6واں حصہ ہے اگر وہ صاحب اولاد ہو، اور اگر اس کی اولاد نہ ہو اور اس کے والدین نے اس کا ورثہ پایا ہو تو اس کی ماں کے لیے 3واں حصہ ہے، اور اگر اس میت کے بھائی بہن ہوں تو پھر اس کی ماں کے لیے 6واں حصہ ہوگا، وصیت کی ادائیگی کے بعد جو اس نے کی ہو یا قرض چکانے کے بعد. تمہارے آبا اور تمہاری اولاد تم نہیں جانتے کہ ان میں سے کون نفع پہنچانے میں تمہارے زیادہ قریب ہے. یہ اللہ کی طرف سے فریضہ ہے. یقیناً اللہ دائمی علم رکھنے والا اور حکمت والا ہے. اور تمہارے لیے اس میں سے نصف ہوگا جو تمہاری بیویوں نے ترکہ چھوڑا اگر ان کی کوئی اولاد نہ ہو. بس اگر ان کی کوئی اولاد ہو تو تمہارے لیے 4واں حصہ ہوگا اس میں سے جو انہوں نے چھوڑا، وصیت کی ادائیگی کے بعد جو انہوں نے کی ہو یا قرض چکانے کے بعد. اور ان کے لیے 4واں حصہ ہوگا اس میں سے جو تم نے چھوڑا اگر تمہاری کوئی اولاد نہ ہو. اور اگر تمہاری کوئی اولاد ہو تو ان بیویوں کا 8واں حصہ ہوگا جو اس میں سے تم نے چھوڑا، وصیت کی ادائیگی کے بعد جو تم نے کی ہو یا قرض چکانے کے بعد. اور اگر ایسے مرد ہو یا عورت ہو جس کا ورثہ تقسیم کیا جا رہا ہو جو کلالہ ہو، یعنی اس کے ماں باپ نہ ہوں اور اولاد نہ ہو، لیکن اس کا بھائی یا بہن ہو تو ان دونوں میں سے ہر ایک کے لیے چھٹا حصہ ہوگا، اور اگر وہ یعنی بھائی بہن اس سے زیادہ ہوں تو پھر سب تیسرے حصے میں شریک ہوں گے، وصیت کی ادائیگی کے بعد جو کی گئی ہو یا قرض چکانے کے بعد، بغیر اس کے کہ کوئی تکلیف میں مبتلا کیا جائے۔ وصیت ہے اللہ کی طرف سے، اور اللہ دائمی علم رکھنے والا اور بڑا بردبار ہے۔ جزاک اللہ۔
جزاکم اللہ احسن الجزا. I now call upon Faraz Ahmed Sahib for the English translation of the verses just recited.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
I
assalam.
seek refuge with Allah from Satan the accursed. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. Now I am going to present the English translation of the portion of Quranic Kareem just recited. These are verses 12 and 13 of Surah An-Nisa, and this translation has been narrated by Hazrat Maulvi Sher Ali Sahib. Allah commands you concerning your children. A male shall have as much as the share of 2 females. But if there be females only, numbering more than 2, then they shall have 2/3 of what the deceased leaves. And if there be one, she shall have the half. And his parents shall have each of them 1/6 of the inheritance. If he have a child, but if he have no child and his parents be his heirs, then his mother shall have 1/3. And if he have brothers and sisters, then his mother shall have 1/6. After the payment of any bequests he may have bequeathed or of debt. Your fathers and your children, you know not which of them is nearest to you in benefit. This is fixing of portions is from Allah. Surely Allah is all-knowing, wise. And you shall have a half of that which your wives leave, if they have no child, but if they have a child, then you shall have 1/4 of that which they leave. After the payment of any bequests they may have bequeathed or of debt. And thou shalt have 1/4 of that which you leave. If you have no child, but if you have a child, then you shall have 1/8 of that which you leave. After the payment of any bequests you may have bequeathed or of debt. And if there be a man or woman whose heritage is to be divided, and he or she has neither parent nor child, and he or she has a brother or a sister, then each one of them shall have 1/6. But if they be more than that, then they shall be equal shares in 1/3. After the payment of any bequest which may have been bequeathed or of debt, without prejudice to the debt. This is an injunction from Allah, and Allah is all-knowing, forbearing.
Jazakum Allah ahsan al-jaza. I now call upon Hasiban Vivek Sahib for Nazam from the blessed poetry of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi.
Walaikum assalam.
وہ پیشوا ہمارا جس سے ہے نور سارا، نام اس کا ہے محمد، دلبر میرا یہی ہے۔ سب پاک ہیں پیمبر ایک دوسرے سے بہتر، لیکز خدا برتر خیر الورا یہی ہے۔ پہلوں سے خوب تر ہے، خوبی میں ایک کمر ہے، اس پر ہر ایک نظر ہے، بدر الدجا یہی ہے۔ وہ یار لا مکانی، وہ دل برے نہانی دیکھا ہے ہم نے اس سے بس رہنما یہی ہے وہ آج شاہدی ہے وہ تاج مرسلی ہے وہ طیب و امی ہے اس کی ثنا یہی ہے اس نور پر فدا ہوں اس کا ہی میں ہوا ہوں وہ ہے میں چیز کیا ہوں بس فیصلہ یہی ہے وہ دل برے گانا علموں کا خزانہ باقی ہے سب فسانہ سچ بے خطا یہی ہے سب ہم نے اس سے پایا شاہد ہے تو خدایا وہ جس نے حق دکھایا وہ مہلکہ یہی ہے جزاک اللہ
Jazakum Allah Ahsanul Jaza. I now call upon Farhan Sahi Sahib for the English translation of the Nazm.
Will now recite the translation of the Nazm just recited. That guide of ours is the source of light. His name is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is indeed our beloved. All the prophets are indeed pure, one excelling the other, but in the sight of Allah the Almighty, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best of them all. He is far superior to the previous ones with superb qualities, similar to the moon. All the eyes are focused on him who has the splendor of the full moon. He loved God dearly, and he is God's beloved. Through him we found the right path. Surely he is the best guide. He is the king of faith and the crown of all the prophets. He is pure, the trusted one. Such indeed is his praise. I see upon the light, and I am completely possessed by it. And in his presence, my own self is insignificant, and that is the truth. He is the most beloved of God and the treasure of spiritual knowledge. Everything else is an illusion, and the truth is that he is the faultless one. All that we have achieved was achieved through him. O God, you are the witness. He indeed is the moon that guided us. Jazakallah.
Jazakum Allah Ahsanul Jaza. Now I would like to introduce to all the participants our first distinguished speaker of this evening, present amongst us, to give us a very comprehensive and insightful presentation on all the aspects of estates wills, will be our friend, respected Randall Longfield, who is a seasoned law professional running Longfield Law Professional Corporation in Brampton, with rich experience in this field to his credit. Thank you, Mr. Randall, for sparing time to speak to us on such an important subject. Here, I would like to share with the participants that they would be welcome to ask him questions which can be texted at cell number 416 450 9417. I repeat, 416 450 9417. But I would certainly request those asking questions to be very brief in their questions due to the time limitations. If someone needs to ask him something very specific, he may contact respected Randall Longfield separately through respected Kabir Chuktai Sahib. I now invite Mr. Randall Longfield to please speak to us on the subject of estates, wills. Thank you.
Thank you for that kind introduction, and good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you about the need for a will and estate planning. Tonight, I will give you a quick overview as to why you should consider preparing a will if you have not already done so. And as indicated, we will then open the meeting up for questions. So please think about any questions or situations you may wish to inquire about. We have slide number 3, please. Thank you. So why should you have a will? Well, it is the will that gives you control over your estate once you pass away. It is you that gets to choose who you want to have act as your executor. Your executor is responsible to administer your will, pay any outstanding debts, pay any taxes owing and funeral expenses. And what remains will then ultimately be distributed to your beneficiaries as you set out in the will. Anyone over 18 years of age can act as your executor. You can have more than one executor, though I recommend no more than 2, as all executors must agree on all proceedings. Disputes between executors must be resolved by an application to the court, which is both costly and time-consuming. In most cases, the executor could be your spouse or one or more of your children. But you can also pick a friend, or it could be an advisor or a relative to act as executor. Remember, anyone over 18 can be your executor. If you have no one you wish to appoint as executor, you can choose a corporate executor. Most of the banks have an estate department to handle these matters. However, it does come with a cost, as the bank will charge normally a percentage of the value of the estate for administering it. So with a will, you will also be able to specify the beneficiaries of your estate. That is, who gets what and how much. Specific bequests can be used to pass on items such as heirlooms. Perhaps you have a cottage or an income property you want to give to a certain child, relative, or whatever. You may have collections. Virtually any asset can be left in a specific bequest to a specific person. You can also make charitable bequests and donations through your will at the time of your death. Residue, which is everything remaining after your specific bequests are distributed, are normally left by percentages. So you may leave all of the residue to your children equally, or perhaps you want to leave a percentage to your grandchildren with the balance to your children. You get to choose how you want to set that up. So here's a rather typical plan for a family will, which will ultimately pass your estate down to your children. If the husband dies, he will appoint the wife as executor and leave the estate to the wife as beneficiary. She will then be able to maintain the home and children from the estate. Or if the wife dies first, she would appoint her husband as executor and leave the entire estate to the husband. This is a tax-free spousal rollover, so the death of the first spouse will avoid tax. Then, on the death of the surviving spouse, a child or children can be appointed executor, and the estate could then be divided amongst the children equally or by percentages as you wish. By doing this, you will attract the least amount of tax by doing the tax-free rollover to your spouse, and then the last of the two spouses to die would then pass it down the generation to the children. We should here mention an important function of your executor, and that is, it is your executor who has legal control over your funeral and burial arrangements. So it is important to give your executor any specific burial instructions you may have. Could I have slide 4, please? So what happens if you do not have a will? That is, if you die intestate. While you have no legal representative to manage your estate, one must be appointed by the courts in order to give your trustee legal authority to administer your estate and assets. One must wait 30 days from the date of death to even submit an application to the court to be appointed as an estate trustee. It is assumed that you will be using these 30 days to try and find a will if one was in fact made. After the 30-day wait period, you apply to the court, and there is normally a further 3 to 6 month wait for the final appointment of an estate trustee, which has to be signed by a judge of the surrogate court. That means you may have several months where no person can access your assets, your bank accounts, or pay or collect debts. So that's a major reason for having a will, so that you immediately have an executor in place to deal with these items. As well, without a will, you do not have a legal representative to make funeral or burial arrangements. Funeral homes will generally work with the next of kin if there is no will, but if a dispute arises, there can be difficulties where there is no legal representative in place. If you do not have a will, the government by statute orders the distribution of your estate. You cannot change this, you cannot control this, it is set by law, and the rules provide that your spouse will get the first $200,000 of the estate, with the balance being split between your spouse and children. If there are 2 children or less, the spouse would get 1/2 of the excess, and the 1 or 2 children would share the other half. If there are more than 2 children, 3 or more children, then the spouse would get 1/2, and the other half, the spouse would get 1/3, and 2/3 would be divided between the 3 or more children. So I misspoke there just to be sure. The spouse would get 1/3 of the excess over 200,000, and the remaining children, if there are 3 or more, would share the other 2/3. If you do not have a spouse or children surviving, the estate then goes to your parents. If your parents are predeceased, it goes to brothers and sisters, and so goes down the bloodline looking for an heir. So without a will, You do not have control over who your beneficiary will be or how much they will receive. It is set by law. If there was no one in line to inherit, then your estate would escheat and be paid to the federal government. And in that case, it's lost. It just goes into the public treasury. Could we have slide 5, please? Now, there are some special circumstances that you can provide for in a will that may be beneficial depending on your situation. With a will, you can appoint a guardian of your infant children. The guardian you choose would have the care, control, and custody of your children while they are under the age of 18. With a will, you can appoint a trustee to manage specific assets or investments that may require certain skills to maintain or manage. A will can also establish a trust to provide for a monthly or periodic payment to beneficiaries you may not want to leave a lump sum payment to if they have issues managing money. Children under 18 can have their bequests managed through a trust to provide for the child's care, support, and education until they become of age. So you would have someone in charge of the money portion of it, that being the trustee, and you can then have the guardian who is looking after the children. So the two of those can work in concert, work together to make sure the children are provided for if both parents are deceased. A will can make step payments, that is to say, the child, rather than inheriting a lump sum at 18, it can be spread over time, and you can choose that timing. An example might be, you would say, pay 1/3 of the estate at age 18, 1/3 at the age 25, and the last third at age 30. This is useful if you have a child or you're concerned that they may have trouble managing money. Could I have slide 6, please? A will can also create a Henson Trust, which is very useful if you have a disabled child, say, receiving Ontario disability payments, or if anyone you are supporting is receiving disability payments. Those payments can stop depending on the amount of income that the disabled person is receiving. And so with a Henson Trust, the trustee can control the amount of income being received to keep below the threshold necessary to maintain the disability payments from the government. So this is a rather special situation. If it does apply to you, you should seek professional advice because it can be of great benefit to you. Finally, there is a situation with second marriages. May not apply often, hopefully not, but there may be children to consider from each marriage. And without planning, this can result in the estate being paid out to the second spouse and family to the detriment of children of the first marriage. Could we have slide 7, please? The main purpose of estate planning is to minimize taxes. So generally, the will can be used to minimize capital gains tax and probate taxes. This can be accomplished by using spousal rollover provisions to transfer assets between spouses without tax. Assets held as joint tenants, such as maybe your house or home, can be transferred to the survivor without payment of any probate tax. So if a property is held by the husband and wife jointly, if one of them dies, that house can transfer with no probate tax to the survivor. Likewise, you can add children in as owners, and that would also transfer it without probate tax. Your principal residence, which is the home you live in, can also be transferred without capital gains tax. So by properly setting up the ownership of the home, You can avoid capital gains tax and probate tax. And finally, I will mention corporate wills. This is a special will which will apply to anyone who owns shares in an incorporated company that may be operating a business, or it may be a holding company holding assets. So if you have a corporation through the corporate will can avoid all probate taxes, and more importantly, the ownership can be transferred immediately, so there is no delay or gap in the operation and control of the corporation. So this is very useful if you have a business that is incorporated. You can make sure that business will continue on to the beneficiaries you choose to take over that business. So we've covered a lot of issues here in a short period of time. I hope we've raised some questions, and if you're ready, I would be pleased to try and answer your questions. So please feel free to ask any questions you may have.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Okay, so Randall, I have received actually some questions.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank you for a very comprehensive presentation. If you allow me, because some of our speakers are actually not very fluent with English, so I'll cover 2 or 3 key aspects in Urdu, which is the mother tongue for these individuals.
Thank you.
And then I have a list of questions which I have received, so I'm going to ask those, and let's see how many of these we cover. So ऐसे अहबाब जो कि जिन्होंने ये presentation सुनी है, जो कैनेडियन सिस्टम, जो कानूनी सिस्टम है, उसके अंदर जो प्रोविजंस दी हुई हैं, उसके हिसाब से वसीयत का प्रॉपर निज़ाम बनाना कई वजूहात की वजह से ज़रूरी है। सबसे बुनियादी वजह तो ये है कि अभी जो आयात हम लोगों ने कुरान करीम की सुनी थी, उसमें वाज़े अंदाज में अल्लाह ताला ने नहायत खोल के ये बयान कर दिया है कि जब कोई इंसान फौत होता है तो उसकी वसीयत और उसका तरका जो है वो कैसे तकसीम होगा। और हमारे लॉयर मोज़ेज़ लॉयर जो हैं रैंडल लॉन्गफील्ड, इन्होंने जो कानूनी तौर पे उसको एक्सप्लेन किया है, जो कि कैनेडियन लॉ के अंदर है, वो फ़र्क है। तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि अगर हम अपनी जो कुरान करीम की हिदायत को फॉलो करते हुए अगर अपनी वसीयत बनाएंगे तो शरीयत के अंदर रहेंगे, वरना वो शरई जो तरीका है उसको हमें छोड़ना पड़ेगा। तो ये इसको ज़रूर ज़हन में रखें। दूसरी बात जो उन्होंने बताई वो ये बताई है कि वसीयत ना होने की सूरत में टैक्सेस ज़्यादा देने पड़ेंगे बिलअमूम, तो ये भी इसलिए भी ज़रूरी है। और तीसरी जो उन्होंने बात बताई है वो ये बताई है कि फैमिली को काफ़ी लंबा अरसा इंतज़ार करना पड़ेगा पैसे लेने के लिए, क्योंकि जो कानूनी मुरवजा तरीका है उसके हिसाब से वेट करना पड़ता है और बाकी सारी चीज़ें हैं। तो इन सारी चीज़ों को अवॉइड हम कर सकते हैं अगर हम अपनी वसीयत बना लें। Now I'm going to ask those questions which I have received. So the first question, Randall, I have received is that we know that banks could be executors as well. So why would we choose family over bank? Because sometimes we think that family members may not be very conversant with the legal aspects or financial aspects.
Yes. Well, the main reason people handle it themselves is that most of the work is done by the lawyer or the law firm in any event. The executors are then advised as to what's happening. The executor is the only one that can actually sign. But if the estate is going to a spouse or children, normally they will not charge any executor's fee. The banks will do the same work, but the normal fee from the bank is 5% of the value of the estate. So you can see that, you know, if you have an estate of even $500,000, you're looking, you're looking at $25,000 in fees to the bank right off the bat, which if it's handled through the lawyer and the family, that money will be saved and be distributed directly to the beneficiaries. So that can be paid directly to family as opposed to bank fees.
Excellent. Okay, so that's very good information. The next question which I have received is, someone has asked that sometimes you see those kits that are available in Costco or Walmart or some websites, which is probably $50 or $100, and people think that, yeah, this would help me sort out all the issues. So why would we, and they have been very direct. They are asking that how much does it cost if we come to a lawyer? Is there a ballpark amount you think would make sense?
I can answer that, yes. The forms that you get will work if they are properly filled out and they are properly signed or executed. In my experience, roughly 50% of homemade wills are defective and they are not operative. The cost is certainly less. What you're paying to have estate planning done as well to save taxes, as we discussed. The cost of a normal will is $350. So that's what we charge to do a will. And with that, you will get proper estate planning to make sure that the ownership of your house is set up to avoid probate taxes, that you're avoiding the most capital gains. It's fair ball game to avoid tax. You cannot evade tax, but you can set your affairs up to attract the least amount of tax legally payable. And that is what you're paying to do. As well, most of the form wills that I have seen do not create trusts for minor children, children under the age of 18. And that can be a problem as far as their support and their educational costs are concerned. So with a normal will, there is always a trust created for minor children because that's how they are receiving the benefits before they can actually receive their inheritance. The inheritance to any child cannot be paid out until they are a minimum of 18 years of age. You can pick a higher age. You may want them to be 21 or 25 before they receive it, but they cannot receive any payment below 18. If you do not have that set up, the amount payable to a child is paid into the public trustee for the province of Ontario. And that is a very difficult situation. You now have a bureaucrat sitting down in Toronto with a file on his desk. He knows nothing about your family or family situation or what the needs may be. And that's the person administering the estate. So if you do a will, create the trust, appoint your trustee and executor, you have the people in place that you know and trust to look after your financial affairs for the benefit of your family.
Okay, very good. Yeah, this is a good segue into the next question I've received, and which is that you have touched upon that forms sometimes are not properly executed. So when you say they are not properly executed, what exactly does it mean? Will the forms, are they required to be notarized or have to be sworn in front of a oath commissioner, or can these be signed by a couple of individuals as a witness?
Yes, that is correct. You need to have it signed properly with witnesses. And so the will must state an executor, appoint an executor. It must give the full names and the amount of the benefit to each beneficiary. And then it's the signing that usually causes the problem. It must be signed by the person making the will at the foot of the will, at the end of the will. It must be dated. There must be 2 witnesses who are not family members and who are all present at the same time with the person making the will. So the testator, the person making the will, plus the 2 witnesses must all sign in the presence of each other. So that is often where it falls down and it's not properly signed. Sometimes the executives don't get filled in. But if the form will is properly filled out, it operates the same as any other will. It is a valid will. But again, you need to make sure that you've got the proper trust provisions and setups in there, and that you've dealt with any specific assets of the estate, such as the home or the business or any secondary properties. If you have investment properties, if you have secondary properties, those all need to be dealt with as well to avoid tax. The tax consequence can be many thousands of dollars. The price of the will is $350. So it's kind of like doing your own work on your engine and doing your own engine overhaul. It may not work out quite as well as you expected.
Okay, thank you. I will very briefly explain this in Urdu as well, as I indicated that some of our audience may be not very well versed with English. So जो अभी हमें बात बताई गई है, 2 चीजें बड़ी important हैं. पहली जो बात है वो ये है कि ऐसे फॉर्म्स बाजार में मिलते हैं जो कि जिनको आप फिल करके कर सकते हैं, लेकिन वो सिर्फ उसी सूरत में एप्लीकेबल होंगे जिस वक्त प्रॉपरली एग्जीक्यूट हों. पहली तो चीज ये जहन में रखें. और दूसरा ये कि अगर वो प्रॉपरली एग्जीक्यूटेड नहीं है, उनके अंदर कुछ कम है कानूनी तौर पे, तो फिर जो कनेडियन विल का सिस्टम है वो किक इन हो जाएगा, जिसका रिजल्ट ये निकलता है कि आपको टैक्स ज्यादा देना पड़ेगा. तो ये बता रहे हैं कि लगभग $300-350 लगते हैं लॉयर के पास अगर आप जाएं, तो वो कॉस्ट उससे बहुत कम है जो टैक्स आपको एडिशनल देना पड़ेगा. दूसरी बात इन्होंने जो एक बताई है वो भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, और वो ये है कि अगर खुदा न खास्ता ऐसी सिचुएशन पैदा होती है कि फैमिली के जो दोनों बड़े सरबराह हैं, माँ और बाप, वो फौत हो जाते हैं और बच्चे भी 18 साल से छोटे हैं, तो उनको पेमेंट का जो तरीका है कानूनी तौर पे वो बहुत लंबा और बहुत तकलीफदेह है. तो ये जरूर ज़हन में रखें कि खुदा न खास्ता अगर ऐसी कोई सिचुएशन होती है, अगर आपने अपनी कानूनी तौर पे विल तैयार की हुई है, तो उस सूरत में आपके लिए ये आसानी पैदा होगी. Next question which I have received, Randy, is that if the will is prepared in Canada and someone moves outside Canada to another place, will that will be enforceable in a different jurisdiction?
In most jurisdictions, yes. If a will is properly signed and executed in the domicile of the person making the will, that is where they're regularly living. So if you're living in Canada, it's a proper will made in Canada, it would be recognized by most countries. There is an international convention. So the will would be probated in Ontario. It would then be sent to the other country where it would be what's called resealed. In other words, it would be certified by that country's legal system, and then it could deal with assets in the other country.
Okay, very good. I am receiving so many questions that I'm amazed at how many people are actually listening to this and they are quite interested. So another question which I have received is that in terms of the cost, is there I mean, you mentioned that there is going to be one-time cost, but do you see a cost as a recurring as well, or?
I'm sorry.
No, it's one time.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the cost?
So the question was that we understand that once a person approaches a lawyer, they have to pay a fee. But is there a recurring nature of that fee as well, which they have to pay maybe every 5 years just to keep that will updated or something like that?
No. If they're changing the will, yes. But I mean, normally the will not need to be updated unless they're making a change in it. That would be either appointing a new executor or perhaps changing how the assets are distributed. Normally, a change like that can be done with what's called a codicil. That's a codicil to the will. So that can be changed generally for in the order of $150 is the cost for a codicil. But unless you're making a change like that, there is no, like annual fee or updating fee. There's no cost like that.
Another question is, and it's very relevant to our community. We have our own financial system where we subscribe to certain amount or certain percentage of charity.
Yes.
One theme in which a major portion of our community may have subscribed to would pertain to will, where they undertake that after their death, 10% of their entire will proceeds would go to the community. So in that case, the question is, so this is the context. So they're asking is that once they approach a lawyer, do they need to identify this and create the will overarching with all of these factors?
Yes, the will would need to set out that. That would be one of the specific bequests we were talking about where you could make a charitable donation. So yes, you would specify who that 10% is to go to. It's done in many communities where 10% is given to a church or a synagogue or a temple, etc. So yes, but you need to specify who the beneficiary of that bequest is, so who that donation is going to.
Okay. Right. So another question which is also very relevant to it has kind of an ethnic background. Within our community, girls they have a lot of jewelry, customer jewelry.
Yes.
And they keep on adding those, which of course I don't like my wife doing it, but well, I have no control on that. So the question they're asking is that jewelry, they don't want the will to be changed every time they add a piece of jewelry. So can this be dealt outside by a handwritten note or something like that?
Yes, there are two ways of dealing with that. You can put directly into the will that you will leave written instructions as to how you want certain items distributed, and then that can be updated from time to time. As well, you can do an amendment to your will anytime by what's called a holograph will. A holograph will means that it is written in hand, by hand. So it must be written in the hand of the person making the bequest. It has to be dated and it has to be signed by them in full with their name. So they can then say, they want this piece of jewelry to go to A, this piece of jewelry to B. They can update it and change it anytime they want by doing it with a holographic will, writing it in their own handwriting, dated and signed. Or they can incorporate a list provision into the will itself, where the will will refer to a list that will be kept with the will, and that list can then be updated from time to time.
Okay. The next question is, someone is asking that if they identify an executor, and unfortunately that executor dies ahead of the person who's basically whose the will it is, what happens?
Okay. If there is only one executor named, then, and you haven't named another executor, the court would then appoint normally the next closest of kin that was able to act as executor and willing to act as executor. You cannot force a person to act as executor just because you name them. They must agree to act at the time, because circumstances can change over the years.
Yeah.
They may be ill or they may, have other reasons for not acting. The other way of dealing with that, and I know I said, well, don't appoint more than 2, but if you appoint 2, then the surviving executor would take over that position. You can also appoint alternate executors. So you can say, I want Kabir, but if Kabir can't act, then I want Suleiman, and if Suleiman can't act, then I want Saad. So you can go A, B, and C. So if A can't act, then it goes to B. If B can't act, then it goes to C. So you can do it that way as well.
Okay. Okay. A quick one. So can these be from different provinces?
Wills are, yes, they're probated by province. They're actually probated by the county or region where the deceased person is living. So in Brampton, the county seat is Brampton. So all of Peel region is dealt with through the Brampton courts. But if you live in Georgetown, you'd be in Halton County, and it would be dealt with through the Milton court. So it goes by county, and then yes, there are different rules from province to province. So the rules apply to the province where you are domiciled at the time you die.
Okay.
Where you're living.
I have long list of questions, but probably this might be the last question, and I just received it, even though that I've received more questions before that. So they're saying that can will be a vehicle to channel the money which you receive from your life insurance.
Yes, normally with life insurance, it is best to name a beneficiary who is to receive that benefit. So let's say you have $100,000 worth of life insurance. You could leave that, say, to your children equally or to your spouse. The reason for naming them in the insurance policy is there is absolutely no tax consequence on insurance. So if it's paid out directly to the beneficiary, there's no income tax and there's no probate tax. If the insurance proceeds, that $100,000 is paid to the estate, and then it's distributed through the will to, say, the children, there's still no capital gains or income tax, but there is probate tax because that money's passing through the estate. So you avoid probate tax by naming the beneficiary directly on the insurance policy.
Okay, that's very good. I have one very important and very relevant question, but that is from the, sorry. Go ahead, please.
Sorry, no, I'm sorry. I said go ahead with it.
Yeah, okay. No, I was indicating that this question which I have received, it is primarily from the angle of Islamic jurisprudence. And I have our Imam also, I also invited him. So I'm going to direct this to Shahrukh Abid Sahib. Ravi Sahib, the question we have received is that, is there a maximum that could be allocated for the cause of Allah? So for example, if someone dies, then they say that 100% of the proceeds should go to Jamaat. Is that even allowed within Sharia, or are there certain limitations?
The only limitation is that the spouse can require at least 50% of net family proceeds to be paid to them. Under Canadian law, the Family Law Reform Act would divide the estate equally between the husband and wife. If the spouse chooses not to exercise that right, then yes, 100% could be paid anywhere. But there is that legal right in a spouse to 1/2 of net family property. So you take the total of all the assets owned by the husband and all the assets owned by the wife, you add those together. And let's say for argument's sake, the wife has $100,000 and the husband has $300,000. We now have $400,000 in total. They would each be entitled to 1/2. So the division would be $200,000 that spouse could claim in the event.
Thank you,
of death.
Randy. I'm not going to direct the same question to our Imam, as he can respond from the Islamic jurisprudence angle. Ji Murib sir.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So regarding donating everything to Jamaat, there's a hadith of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that one time there was a garden that belonged to a Sahabi. I think it was Abu Talha radhiyallahu anhu. And he went to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he's like, "O Prophet of Allah, I would like to donate this whole garden in the way of Allah." And the Holy Prophet, peace upon him, asked him that, "Do you have any children?" He's like, "Yes, I do have a daughter." So he's like, "You know what? Give her some of this garden." And then he's like, "Okay, I'll give her a quarter of the portion, and then and the 3/4 I'll give it in the way of Allah." The Holy Prophet ﷺ said that no, give her more. Up until he's okay, I'll give my daughter 3/4 of the garden, and the 1/4 that's left, I'll give it in the way of Allah. So if we have a family that's behind us, we have kids, we have wives, husbands, children, whatever, then it's they have a right over this as well. So we have to give them their due right, and then whatever is left over, we can give it in the way of Allah.
Yes, under Ontario law, there is a Dependents Relief Act, and that says that anyone that is a dependent, and a dependent is any child under the age of 18, and it can be anyone that is being supported. So someone may have a disability, the person is supporting them, giving them food, shelter, and a place to live. They can have a claim against the estate. There is no set amount. It would be up to the court to determine the amount if an agreement cannot be reached between the parties. But you have rights of the spouse, and then you have rights of the children or any other dependent to make a claim against an estate. So that you would have to work through with the principles in the Quran or whatever arrangements the parties wish to make.
Perfect. Thank you. I want to thank you, Randy. Really appreciate it. Was a very interesting session. I can tell you that I have at least 10 or 11 questions which I could have asked, time permitting, but unfortunately we are already about 10 minutes over the scheduled allocated time. So I would encourage all those members who still have any questions or who think that after learning all this, it is important to have a will. They can, of course, approach Mr. Longfield or a lawyer of your choice. But in any event, what we have learned is that it is not overly expensive to draw a will, but it's going to definitely save taxes, avoid all or allow us or help us avoid all unforeseen issues which come after our death. So it is very important. So thank you again. And I request respected Virk Saab to kindly proceed with the rest of the program.
Jazakumullah Jaza Chuktai Saab. I think the number of questions which were asked and the substance of these questions, they amply show the interest that was taken by the participants. And I believe that they would certainly have benefited from the comprehensive answers provided by Mr. Randall. Thank you, Mr. Randall. Thank you once again. Now I would...
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You take care. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening. Now I'd like to introduce to all the participants our second distinguished speaker of this evening, Respected Kaleem Malik Sahab, who's the National Secretary of Wasaya, besides being the National Vice President of the Canada Jamaat. We are grateful to him that he took time out of his busy schedule and
Thank you very much.
joined us to enlighten
you.
us on the Jamaat's very important component of Wasiyat and its different aspects. No, I invite respected Kaleem Malik Sahab, please, to speak to us on this subject. And like the previous speaker, he would also be welcoming questions from the participants. And these questions can be texted at the same cell phone, which I already shared with the participants. I would like to repeat that once again. The cell phone is 416-450-9417. Jazakallah Kaleem Malik Sahab.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakumullah ta'ala. It is exactly 7:40. And according to your program, this is a time for question and answer session. Do you want to say me a few things, or you want to proceed with the question and answer?
Amir Sahab, I think so. You should please speak for the time which you prepared, and then we will take questions if necessary.
Okay, Jazakumullah. I wanted to talk about few things, but let me, instead of having a formal speech, let me say a few things about today's program. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Today's program, as I was told, it is about Nizam Wasiyat. And we were having an Ashra Wasiyat in the beginning of the month. There was some material prepared by the Department of Wasiyat in the light of the instructions given by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sayyidullah Ta'ala bin Aziz in our National Amla meeting we had on 3rd of October. I had sent a program for today's meeting in which I had requested throughout the country that we should listen to what Hazrat Saab has said to National Amla and specifically for the Nizam Wasiyat. In that Nizam Wasiyat, Hazur Anwar has said that we are not interested. He specifically, actually, I was facing him and he said to me कि लोगों को निज़ाम वसीयत में शामिल करें लेकिन चंदे के लिए. Today we could have seen that when the dollar amount comes and when the question about the assets in this world, it comes, how much concerned we are. But Hazur is very much worried about another aspect of the Musis. So the presentations I had sent, I hope that Sadr Saab had got it, and at least the Secretary of Wasaya should have got it because I sent it through various channels. So I request the Secretary of Wasaya of your Halqa that please make sure that those Ashra Wasiyat material reaches to every Musis house at least. It can be to all the houses, but specifically to the Musis. The reason is this is an instruction of our beloved Imam, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih. Hazur has said that I'm worried and I want that Musis should excel in their righteousness. And to excel in righteousness, he has drawn our attention to a couple of things. Number one, is Musi punctual in his 5 daily prayers? Is Musi punctual in reciting the Holy Quran? And lastly, he said that how is the Musi's family life? So these are the 3 main things he had asked that we should look upon. So in that presentation, which I have sent to all the Jamaats so that it will reach to all the Musis, the main thing is how and we should act upon the instructions of our beloved Imam Hazrat Khalifatul Masih. The reason is that his obedience is our solution. And in his obedience, if we look at it, the question comes up that how I should proceed. This is the will which we talk about. This is very, very good topic which we discussed. And in that will, the very first sentence could be added that all my previous wills are null and void, and 1/10 of my total assets should go to Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat in Canada. That's it, very simple. And then the rest could be distributed as per the law. But to reach to that point, Hazrat Sahab said, Hazrat Sahab के जो specific अल्फाज है वो ये थे कि लोग समझते हैं कि मैंने $100 दे दिया, $400 दे दिया, $10,000 दे दिया, $20,000 दे दिया. Hazrat Sahab, dollar is not the main thing. The main thing is your righteousness. And when we talk about the righteousness, the problem which we are facing right now is that number of cases which are increasing and the unrest among the families, among the children, that is increasing. When I die, who will take my assets? If my children are not righteous, they are not linked with the Jamaat, if they are willing to marry outside the Jamaat, if they want to go on their own way, they take this money or they don't take this money. I didn't gain much in this world. हजरत तो मैंने नज़म भेजी थी आज, वो यही थी कि अगर वो पढ़ी जाती तो उसमें भी यही था कि जो तकवा है वो क्या है. हजरत मसीह मौद अलैहिस्सलाम, he said in one of his poems, when I depart from this world, what I want to see is हो ये देख लूं तकवा सभी का. That when I depart from this world, the only thing I want to see is that all my children are righteous or not. So my dear brothers and sisters who are listening today's class, what is taqwa? When we look at it in detail, one of the hadiths by Hazrat Umar, one of the quote is in the history that somebody asked Hazrat Umar, tell me, what is the righteousness? What is taqwa? And he said, just imagine that you are wearing an abaya, just like women's burqa, and that is the normal dress for the Arabs too. And you are walking through a field which is full of thorns. So you hold yourself that your clothes should not be caught in those thorns. That is taqwa. So whatever we do in life, every day, we see that how can I save myself from the mistakes, from anything, any wrongdoing which can make my Lord, my Allah, displeased with me. That is taqwa. हम कहते हैं ना कि अल्लाह ताला का खौफ जो है वो तकवा है. एक्चुअली मैं उसको इस रंग में कहता हूँ कि मुझे डर ये है कि मैं अल्लाह ताला के प्यार से दूर ना हो जाऊँ, जो उसकी मोहब्बत है उससे दूर ना हो जाऊँ. उस मोहब्बत को हासिल करने के लिए खुदा ताला कुरान मजीद में कहते हैं कि है मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम, you make this announcement that कुल इन कुंतुम तुहिब्बूनल्लाह फत्तबिऊनी युहब्बुकुमुल्लाह. कि मेरी मोहब्बत को ए लोगों हासिल करने का एक ही तरीका है, और ये है कि मोहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की इत्तबा करना. अब मोहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की इत्तबा हम कैसे करते हैं, हमारे रोज़ के दिन कैसे गुजरते हैं. अगर हम सुबह उठे और दुआ ही नहीं की, मसलन आम वसल्लम ये दुआ किया करते थे कि अल्लाहुम्मा अहयाना बाद मा अमातना व इलैहि नुशूर. अगर मुझे ये दुआ ही नहीं याद, या मेरे बच्चों को भी नहीं याद, मुझे पता ही नहीं उठ के सुबह क्या करना है, तो मैं कैसे आम वसल्लम की पैरवी कर रहा हूँ. फिर आम वसल्लम तहज्जुद पढ़ा करते थे, मैं भी पढ़ता हूँ. आपके तो पाँव सूज जाया करते थे, कभी मैं भी इतनी देर के लिए खड़ा हूँ. आप पाँचों नमाजों के लिए तशरीफ लाते थे. डू आई डू द सेम थिंग. फिर आप कहते हैं कि खुदा ताला की खातिर आपका जो ऐलान है वो ये है कि होली कुरान अल्लाह सेज फर्दर that O Prophet sallallahu make this announcement also that kul inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin. Unless otherwise you do not have all your acts for the sake of Allah, you cannot gain His love. So for that, he says that Kullarna Salati, all my worship, whatever sort it is, Roze hai, Namaz hai, Hajj hai, Zakat hai, and Manusuki, and whatever is my sacrifices. قربانی کی عید پہ نہیں، ہر روز سیکریفائس ہوتے ہیں. کبھی اپنے بات کو آپ روکتے ہیں، کبھی غصے سے بچتے ہیں، یہ بھی قربانی ہے. کبھی بچوں کے خاطر اٹھ کے دعا کرتے ہیں، یہ بھی قربانی ہے. ہر وہ چیز جو خدا تعالیٰ کی محبت کو حاصل کرنے کے لیے ہے، وہ حاضر کہتے ہیں کہ اے اللہ میں وہ کرتا ہوں. نہ صرف وہ کرتا ہوں بلکہ وہ کہتے ہیں کہ اے اللہ محیا یا و مماتی، میری زندگی اور موت سب کچھ للہ رب العالمین، سب کے لیے ہے جو دونوں جہانوں کا مالک. اگر اللہ دو جہان کا مالک ہے تو میں تو اس گھر میں جس پہ بھی بہت ساری مارکیٹ بھی ہے اسی کا مالک ہوں. تو وہ اس دو جہان کے مالک سے میرا پیار اور محبت کیسے بڑھے گی؟ That is what حضرت صاحب is worried about us. قرآن مجید کی تلاوت ہے. Do I really recite the Holy Quran by understanding it? مجھے قرآن مجید کا ترجمہ آتا ہے. اگر امام صاحب نے آج کوئی نئی صورت تلاوت کر دی ہے تو کیا میں پیچھے کھڑا ہو کہ مجھے اس کا ترجمہ آتا ہے یا نہیں آتا ہے، مجھے سمجھ آ رہی ہے کہ نہیں آتی. اگر میری زندگی کے اتنے سال گزر گئے ہیں کہ بال بھی سفید ہونے لگے اور قرآن مجید کا ترجمہ ہی نہیں آیا تو میں نے کیا سیکھا؟ دنیا تو بہت کما لی، بہت کچھ اللہ نے دے دیا، گاڑیاں بھی ہیں، گھر بھی ہیں، بھاگ دوڑ بھی ہے، سارا دن ایک چکر چلا ہوا ہے کہ کس طرح سے ہم اس کو بہتر سے بہتر کر سکیں. لیکن جو اصل ول ہے، اصل وصیت ہے، جو خدا کے حضور حاضر ہونا ہے، اس کے لیے کیا کرنا ہے؟ This is what Hazrat Sahib is worried about us. This is what a Musi should be more worried about us. موسیوں کے لیے بہت سارے جو ہے کام آپ نے یہ بھی فرمایا مجھے نصیحت کرتے ہوئے کہ حضرت خلیفۃ المسیح ثانی نے فرمایا تھا کہ موسیوں کے کاموں میں سے ایک کام یہ ہے کہ وہ نہ صرف خود قرآن مجید پڑھیں، اوروں کو بھی پڑھائیں. But if I don't know if the Quran myself, how can I teach others? Now the problem what is happening is that our children, they don't know the Quran. It's getting hard for them to understand. Understanding is difficult. They can't even recite it properly. So this is the more worrisome. Then the last thing is, because I'm looking at the time too, it is very, very little time left. The problem which we are facing is our family life. Family life میں ایک سب سے بڑا مسئلہ شروع ہوتا ہے کہ فیملی کو شروع کرتے وقت جھوٹ سے بچے. جھوٹ تباہ کر دیتا ہے ہر چیز کو. پہلا جھوٹ ہم رشتوں کے موقع پہ بولتے ہیں اور ہماری ایکسپیکٹیشن عجیب ہو گئی. کبھی لوگ صرف اتنی بات پہ ناراض ہو جاتے ہیں کہ ہاں وہ چائے جو تھی وہی بڑی اچھی بنی ہوئی تھی. انا للہ. آج وسلم نے فرمایا ہے کہ اے لوگوں جب تم رشتے کے لیے جاؤ تو اس خاندان کو دیکھو. آپ نے فرمایا کہ کوئی شخص مرد کے بارے میں فرمایا کہ تم عورت سے 4 وجہ کی وجہ سے شادی کر سکتے ہو. ایک اس کے حسن کی وجہ سے، ایک اس کے مال کی وجہ سے، ایک اس کے خاندان کی وجہ سے. تو نے فرمایا تم ان تینوں چیزوں کو چھوڑ کے یہ دیکھو کہ وہ متقی ہے یا نہیں، کیا وہ گرانہ 5 وقت کا نمازی ہے یا نہیں، ان کا جماعت کے ساتھ تعلق کیسا ہے، ان کا خلافت کے ساتھ تعلق کیسا ہے، صدر ان کے بارے میں کیا رپورٹ دیتا ہے. یا ابھی بعض لوگ کہتے ہیں بس بھی ہمیں رشتہ بتا دیں تو ایسا ہو جو ہماری طرح کا میڈیاکر ہی ہو، کبھی مسجد چلے گئے کبھی نہ چلے گئے. یہ معیار نہ رکھیں. یہ معیار ہمیں راستے راستے اگلی نسل کہے گی ٹھیک ہے ہمیں کسی چیز کی ضرورت نہیں، وی آر اوکے جسٹ لائک کینیڈین. جو جسٹ لائک کینیڈین ہے دیٹ از ایکچولی ٹیکنگ اس فار اوے فرام ایوری. اس کے بعد کیا ہوتا ہے جب بچے کو قدم اٹھا لیتے ہیں اب ماں باپ کا سکون ختم ہو جاتا ہے. نو دے اسٹارٹ رائٹنگ دی لیٹرز حضور پلیز پیپر. پھر ان شادیاں ہو جاتی ہیں، پھر شادیاں ختم ہو جاتی ہیں، پھر قضاء کے مقدمے شروع ہو جاتے ہیں. ان سب چیزوں کو بچنے کے لیے حضرت صاحب ہمیں کس طرح بلا رہے ہیں؟ اٹھو روزانہ قرآن پڑھو کہ تو وہ کیا کہتا ہے. اٹھو ہر روز خدا سے دعا مانگو، 5 وقت نماز. اللہ تعالیٰ کے رسول صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے فرمایا ہے کہ میں 3 لوگوں کی دعا کو رد نہیں کرتا. ایک وہ مظلوم جس کے اوپر ظلم ہو، دوسرا وہ مسافر جو رستہ بھول جائے، اور تیسرے وہ شخص جو باپ اٹھ کے صبح اپنے رب سے اپنے بچوں کے لیے دعا کرتے ہیں. تو ہمیں ماں باپ کو دیکھنا چاہیے کہ ہم کس وقت اپنے بچوں کے لیے دعا کرتے ہیں، ہمارا کیا حال ہے. میرے بہنوں اور بھائیوں، وقت بہت چھوٹا سا ہے لیکن اس میں حضرت صاحب کے تینوں نصائح میں دوبارہ دہرا دیتے ہیں. आपने फरमाया कि हर घर लेकिन मूसी बिलखुसूस हर रोज कुरान मजीद की तिलावत करें। हर घर लेकिन मूसी बिलखुसूस अपनी नमाजों में पक्का हो जाए और मूसी अपने घर का निगहबान हो। ये ना हो कि वो कहें जी हाँ देखा ये शख्स ये तो मूसी है लेकिन ज़रा ध्यान से इसके साथ कोई बिजनेस करना। हाँ माँ बाप तो मूसी हैं लेकिन ज़रा ध्यान से रिश्ते के लिए जाना, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता। बल्कि हमारा म्यार ये होना चाहिए कि if somebody says where are you going, people say oh parents are Musi, mashallah, Allah bless them. Children should be good too. So proceed. Allah will bless. These should be our criteria. So therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, please, I request Sadr Sahib, I humbly request you. Actually, I beg you and beg Secretary Sahib to make sure that the message is there. Hazur's message, Hazur's advice is part of that material of Ashram. Please make sure that it should reach to everybody, every household. May Allah bless us all that we act upon the command of our beloved Imam Hazrat Khalifatul Masih. Because, my dear brother and sister, we will not gain anything in this world. ये घर हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने एक मरतबा एक सहाबी ने कहा कि या रसूलल्लाह मैं फौत होने लगा हूँ और मैं ये फलां चीज़ फलां को देता हूँ, फलां चीज़ फलां को देता हूँ, फलां चीज़ फलां को। आपने फरमाया कि अब तो तुम्हारे हाथ में कुछ नहीं है, अब तो जो ले या न ले वो तो मामला ख़त्म हो गया। जो चीज़ देनी है अल्लाह के रास्ते में वो इस दुनिया में देनी। अपने वादों का इफ़ा, अपने चंदों की हिफाजत मुत्तकी है तो वो घबराता है, कहता अल्लाह ने मुझे तो $1,00,000 दिया, कैसे मुमकिन है आपको नसीहत $4,000। फिर वो खुद ब खुद हर चीज़ उसकी ठीक होती चली जाती, हर चीज़ ठीक होती चली जाती। तो अल्लाह ताला हमें हज़रत साहब की नसीहत पे अमल करने की तौफीक अता करे। May Allah bless us and our children, and may He safeguard us against any calamity and all the evils of the society. Ameen. Allahumma ameen. Jazakumullah ta'ala khairan.
Jazakumullah ta'ala khairan, respected Kaleem Sahib, for such a useful and educative presentation on Nizam-e Wasiyat and Jamaat and its significance. May Allah enable us all to comprehend the philosophy of this blessed scheme initiated by Promised Messiah Islam and benefit from it as it ultimately aims at our spiritual uplift. Ameen. Shuktai Sahib, for questions.
I don't think there is a time now.
Assalamu alaikum to Allah. Mr. I have few questions. One question which I have received is probably the question which you answer most, if I could make a guess, and it is that we are not strong spiritually, whereas the requirement of wasiyat is that you need to be strong and you need to meet a certain level of righteousness. They're asking that if I make up my mind to be my Musi, I see there is a conflict that I am not there, but I want to be there. So help us understand what we could do.
What happened is that there is nobody perfect. We always try our best to gain the love of Allah. So when you read the Risala al-Wasiyat, you see that Hazrat Masih Maud Islam has prayed fervently about the Muslims. He said, "Oh Allah, anybody who buries in this Maghfirah, grant him the Bahish, grant him the heavens." And those prayers are so strong. If I say, "Oh Allah, I have said La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Oh Allah, I have accepted promise Messiah Islam. Oh Allah, I am very weak, but I join the Nizam al-Wasiyat so that the prayers of Hazrat Masih Maud Islam may be accepted in my favor." That is Allah. So whatever my weaknesses are, never say. This is actually a bahana. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani has said that if you think you are not righteous, join the Nizam al-Wasiyat. Allah will make you righteous. So this is in Allah's hand. But I should try too. Sometimes I think the people who do not join the Nizam al-Wasiyat, what is wrong? Don't they believe in those prayers of Hazrat Masih Maud Islam? If they believe, nobody can sit back and watch, but rather they should jump in to where he had prayed for Jamaat Ahmadiyya a lot. He had a specific prayers for the Mursis, and why I'm depriving myself and my family. Therefore, I also encourage that the children who, when they become 16 years old, let them join the Nizam Siyat, because they will come under this protection. And if we are afraid that the society may drag them with its own course, Allah will save them and bring it to Allah's own will, inshallah. Unmute kar le. Please unmute yourself.
Jazakallah, Amir Sahab. Next question, it has a little bit of administrative angle to it, but I will ask and I hope you will be able to put some light on it. So they're asking that after my demise, if I choose to be buried in Rabwa as opposed to Canada, is the process which needs to be followed
Yes,
beforehand, or it's...
Every year, many people, their family, they take them over there. I took my brother too. He's buried there. It's very simple. Once all the conditions are met, you can be buried in Baristi Makra. And the people who come from India, if they make the will, they can be buried even in Baristi Makra too. But only people belong to India. The rest of the world, they can be buried in Baristi Makra.
Jazakallah. Misa, another question which I have received is that are there any plans to build
yes,
a proper Bhashti Maqbara here in
yes,
Canada, which could be a replica?
Yes, we have applied. You know, the space we took in Redford, one of the prime objective was to build a cemetery. Unfortunately, it has been delayed, and I'm going to put it up again tomorrow on Sunday in our meeting. But inshallah ta'ala, our utmost is that we should have our own cemetery, which should be proper lots will be allocated for Maqbara Musian, and that will be there inshallah ta'ala.
Inshallah.
That is our prime objective.
We have another question which we have received is it's related to the real estate property. So they are saying that we all know that the prices of real estate have gone up and it's virtually impossible to pay 10% while someone is alive. So help us in terms of what we could do.
There are many people, alhamdulillah, who have paid. There are two ways. For example, there was a Musi in Peace Village. When he bought his house about 8 years ago, he said the house is about $480,000. He brought the deeds paper. He was given 2 years by Marcus. He paid $48,000 right there. And now that house is about $1 million, but he is cleared. He has already paid. There are a lot of people. Actually, I was talking to yesterday somebody who said that I have already paid about $30,000 on account for his Jaidan. And inshallah ta'ala, I'm trying my best that I should pay it. So wherever you have some money, extra money, you can start paying his Jaidan, but make sure that you pay first 1/10 of your your income. That should be paid first. His yes. Actually, I'm worried. Normally, I don't go overtime. The time is already up. 8 or 2 is there. But you are a president. You can actually, if you want.
We started few minutes late, so I think so. We have that leverage to go 5 minutes before. Sorry, after.
Let people know so that it won't go beyond 8:08. Inshallah. Okay. 5 minutes.
I will ask just the question, because the last question was more about that if someone was not able to pay, so what is the process the family is required to follow after the death for that 10%?
This is why the will of the Canadian will should be written to. I agree with that. That no assets will be distributed until 1/10 of the person's will be paid. So that we make sure. But alhamdulillah, those people who pray fervently about their children, the children they come and pay. For example, in Brampton, I know 2 brothers whose father died. They took their father to Rabwa and they have to pay about $20,000. They arranged it. Even they took some money from the line of credit and they brought the check, paid, took the father, and he's buried in Bishti Makkah. So this is why we should pray, Rabbana hablana min azwajina wa dhurriyyatina qurrata a'yunin waj'alna lil muttaqina imama. Every day, in every prayer, that children should be such that they should take care of our promises with Allah, promises with Allah. So we should not be very much worried. Inshallah, Allah, children who are pious will take care of them.
Inshallah, inshallah. Mirza, last question is, and our member, they're asking that we came from Pakistan, where generally car is a part of your wasiyat, whereas in Canada they are seeing that cars are not. So what is the reason why they are not? And what should
The
be
reason is car is depreciated, and over a couple of years is depleted, value becomes zero. So only those assets which are liquidable, that can be done. But suppose that person after 10 years sells his car for $2,000, he can pay $200 on that and make sure that it becomes his income. But all those assets which are gone with the time, for example, maybe a sewing machine that has been used for 20 years and finally it is gone, or other such assets which have a value in time, that is taken care of accordingly. Okay?
Yeah, these are the questions which I had. So, Virksa, you can.
Jazakallah Ahsanul Jaza, respected Khalil Malik Sahab. We have a time constraint, and Malik Sahab has to leave.
Yeah, I don't have to leave. Your time is up for the meeting.
Okay, Jazakallah. May I request you for some concluding remarks and then to lead us in the silent prayers, please.
Yes.
And I would you allow me to make another announcement and request that I'll request the participants to stay tuned. I have to make certain announcements after that about certain matters. Jazakallah.
You can make the announcements now.
Okay, if you allow.
Sure.
First announcement is about the fast ending Waqf Jadid year. You know, it's coming to an end within 40 days, 45 days. And I will request all the members to kindly focus on the payment of the Waqf Jadid pledges if they had made. And if they haven't made, then they should make the payment before concluding the Waqf Jadid year. And secondly, this month's book for reading is Pegam-e-Sulh, or the Message of Peace, written by Promised Messiah ﷺ. And the link about this book has already been shared with all the members. They will be requested to kindly study this book and then complete that survey on the Google. And for that survey, the link has been provided over there in the Google. Jazakallah. And the third and the last announcement is that it has been seen that most of the members, they do not come forward in the service of Jamaat. And mostly, while they are on their homes, you know, particularly in the context of the present COVID circumstances, even then they don't devote their time for Jamaat service. They are requested to kindly devote some time daily for the service of Jamaat, because it is the only thing which, you know, which keeps us connected with the Jamaat, and they should rather offer themselves for Jamaat duties, certain Jamaat duties. We must remember one thing, that there is no guarantee for our posterity to remain attached to this Kashtiyanu, this Jamaat, if we now do not set our personal examples, you know, of sacrificing our time and other pursuits for Jamaat. I hope all will pay attention to that. May Allah enable us all to be true servants of Islam Ahmadiyya. Ameen. Malik Sahab, for concluding remarks and prayers, please.
My concluding remarks are a humble request. my request is that we should listen to the sermon of Hazrat Ibrahim Masih every week. We are listening for a long time. Did we ever have a desire in our heart that may I be such like such and such Sahabi of Hazrat Masih or Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Sister may have desired that my brother may be like Hazrat Abdullah bin Masud or Hazrat Talha or Hazrat Suhaib. May a wife has a desire that her husband could be like that he could be among those people. Hazrat Abdullah bin Masud, for example, was one of the 4 people to whom Hazrat said that whoever wants to learn the Holy Quran, he can learn from him. Hazrat Musab bin Umair, what a beautiful young man, handsome man he was, but when he martyred in Jang-e Uhud, there was not even one sheet to cover his body. So this world, it has no limit. You can go for a house, a bigger house from 1700 square feet to maybe 7,000 square feet. Question is, do I have a peace in my home or not? So my dear brother and sister, the peace is Allah bi zikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. So that zikr jo hai Allah ka, tilawat, حضرت صاحب نے فرمایا تلاوت کرو، نمازیں پڑھو، اور میں آپ سے یہ ریکویسٹ کرتا ہوں امام وقت کی ہم سب مل کے اطاعت کریں اور حضرت صاحب کا خطبات کو سنیں، اپنے دلوں کو نرم کریں، سختیوں کو چھوڑ دیں۔ دنیا چند روزہ ہے، کتنے ہمارے عزیز چلے گئے، کب ہم نے جانا ہے کوئی پتہ نہیں۔ اپنے گھروں کو پرسکون کرنے کے لیے، دنیا کی خواہشات کو لمٹ کرنے کے لیے اللہ تعالیٰ سے اس کا پیار ہمیں مانگے، خدا مجھے بھی عطا کرے اور ہم سب کو عطا کرے۔ جزاکم اللہ، یہ دعا کریں۔ آمین اللہم، جزاکم اللہ تعالیٰ سے
جزاک اللہ۔
السلام علیکم۔
السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ۔